I want to help you break out of the pentatonic box that we get stuck in, and I want to do it with one simple lick. So let's dive in. So we're going to do this in the key of A for no other reason than I like the key of A. So if we come down here where we can play our A chord, laying our finger flat, we get a pattern down here, and it's our major pentatonic pattern. And anytime that you learn any of these patterns or these boxes, I don't want you to just sit and run them up and down. I want you to learn little licks inside of there. So we're going to learn a really simple lick. We're going to bend this 4th fret of the G string, release it, 2nd fret of the G string, 4th fret of the D string, and then back to our A note, which is the 2nd fret of the G string, which is why we're going to end there. So the lick sounds like this. Now you might be thinking, Dave, that's too easy of a lick. There's not a whole lot I can do with that. Well, I can play an entire solo with this lick. And there's a reason why I tell you to experiment around, play around with these licks that you learn, because I don't want you to just regurgitate licks. I want you to experiment around with them and find some variations. So, for example, instead of running it like this, I might practice running it backwards. Or, I like that bend, so I might sit and play around with that bend like that, or maybe something, and yes, I'm skipping this 4th fret of the D string because I might not want to play it, or I'm just trying to find different combinations or variations of that lick. And if I do that, that means that I don't have to learn a ton of different licks. I just have to play around with one very simple lick. So this will help you come up with different licks if you just kind of run them forwards, run them backwards, try different bends, try different variations. Then you're only learning one lick, but you can come up with a lot of different ideas, because there's only so many notes that are available, or only so many combinations of notes. But if you start playing different rhythms and different variations of those notes, then you start getting infinite guitar licks. Now, I tell you this all the time, that anything you can do in the major, if you move it 3 frets this way, so I'm going to move it up 3 frets, 1, 2, 3, I can do the same exact thing, and now it becomes minor. Now, when I was down here, I ended on the 2nd fret of the G string because this was my A note. But when I move it up 3 frets, my A note is now where my ring finger is on the 7th fret of the D string. So I'm going to have to end there. So I'm not going to go back to my pointer finger to, play this lick, at least not in the same way that I did down here. But when I play it up here, now it sounds completely different than it did down here, because now I'm in the minor pentatonic. And again, when you move a lick from the major, move it up to the minor, I want you to experiment around with different ways to play that. So maybe you run this backwards, or maybe you play around, with that bend, or maybe you try to, end on your pointer finger and maybe kind of give that a bend. I like the way that sounds, or sit there and bend that note that's there on the pointer finger. So like I said, just experiment around with different ways to play these different little variations and combinations, and you can come up with a whole lot of licks. The other thing that I tell you to do is find different places on the guitar to play these. And this is where I started breaking out of the pentatonic box, and I'm going to explain how in just a second. But remember, when we were down here playing this lick originally, I'm thinking of this pattern, ring finger, pointer finger, ring finger on the next string, and then back to my pointer finger. But I was going 2 frets up from my A note. So if I can go find another A note, so let's say this 5th fret here on the E string, I should be able to play the exact same pattern and get the same lick an octave higher. And I do. So I can also do the same thing with this minor pentatonic lick that we were playing. If I can find an A note that I can play with my ring finger, I should be able to play that exact same lick. So let's go to this A note on the 10th fret of the B string. I'm going to start up here on the E string. And yes, I get the same exact lick. So now I've got 4 different places that I can play that exact same lick, but everywhere I play it's going to give me a little bit different of a sound because I'm playing it in a different spot and I'm playing it in different octaves. And then when you throw in the variations that you can do of that lick, you really start building your repertoire of guitar licks that you can play. But here's where things begin to click, and it took way too long for them to click with me. So I'm going to try my best to explain how I began to break out of this pentatonic box. When I was down here playing that original lick, I was playing this 4th fret here on the G string. Well, when I moved it 3 frets up to play in the minor, I realized that this 4th fret of the G string, I was able to play that if I'm in the key of A. It's right next to where I'm playing that lick in the minor. So what would happen if I reached down there and grab it in that lick? And I like the way that sounds. And now we begin mixing major and minor together. So that 4th fret I'm able to play if I'm up here playing in my minor pentatonic. Now I'm able to reach and grab that 4th fret. Another thing that dawned on me was as we were playing this lick an octave higher up here on the 5th and the 7th fret of the E string, 7th fret of the B string, and then back to our A note. These 7th fret of the E and the 7th fret of the B, I don't play those in the minor pentatonic. I play the 8th frets. But that lick sounds perfectly fine in the key of A because it's part of my major pentatonic scale. So why don't I start incorporating those notes in along with that 4th fret of the G string? Why don't I start incorporating all of those notes into my playing? Again, mixing major and minor together. And I realized that I'm able to play a whole bunch of notes and not have to move out of this position. And another thing that took way too long to dawn on me is that as I'm playing my A shape up here, my bar chord, or a lot of times I like to play it in this F shape so that I have my pinky free, there is a note that I'm playing here that isn't part of my normal minor pentatonic that I was used to playing up here, and that's this 6th fret on the G string. This is my major 3rd. So if I begin incorporating that along with all these other notes that I'm able to play, now I've got a whole bunch of notes that I can play that sound good in the key of A. And then I learned my minor pentatonic blues scale, which is just like the minor scale, the minor pentatonic, only I add this 8th fret of the G string, and that gives you the blues scale, the minor blues scale. So now I've got even more notes that I can play. And there are only 12 possible notes that you can play. And if you can play everything here in the major and the minor blues scale, then you're already playing 9 of the possible 12 notes you could ever play. The only 3 notes that I'm not playing are the 6th fret of the E string, 6th fret of the B string, and then I'm not playing this 4th fret of the E string, although this is my major 7th, so I do play this, I do play that every now and again. But if you can start incorporating all of these notes together, mixing the major and mixing the minor, this begins to break you out of, these boxes, so to speak, because almost every note that you could ever want to play is in either the major pentatonic or the minor pentatonic. And it's up to you to kind of mix them together and find the combinations of notes that you want. So try these different combinations, try these little simple licks in different places, try different variations of them, try incorporating major and minor together. This all helps you break out of that box. I hope this gives you a better, at least visual illustration of the things that helped me break out of that box. So I really do hope this helps. I appreciate you watching. I thank y'all for supporting this channel. Consider streaming some of my music. Shameless plug, I know. I hope this helps. And as always, if you need something, reach out to me. I'll be glad to help you.